Service Canada is the federal level of service delivery, and that means, for us, that means a national level of service across a very geographically dispersed country with populations that we serve in English and French, so we have 2 official languages in Canada. And more and more, we're also having the challenge of serving multi-language populations because of immigration to Canada. We were asked to talk a little bit about the drivers for change in public service delivery. I see 5 key drivers of change that we are currently experiencing in the public service delivery. The first being increased citizen expectations, and I think I've heard that echoed in every session that I've attended today. The need to have not only one-stop shop, but also customization of the services and really a full integration and reduced complexity so that when the citizen accesses the service, it's intuitive and it's simple and it's fast and it's quick. We're seeing demographic shifts. For Canada, our population, our aging population will double by 2036. And that means that we need to build for the future and be able to serve our senior citizens even more. We've also got urbanization of our population, and how do we balance that with the continuing needs of rural citizens and access? We've got, of course, the tension around doing more with less, reduced budgets, and increased expectations. We believe is the ground for innovation, and that's the story that we want to be part of as we bring Service Canada to the next generation of transformational change in service delivery. Technological advancements, mobile, making sure that we build not for what we don't have yesterday, but what we need tomorrow. And privacy information, privacy and security issues around protecting personal information are very much forcing us to look at choices that we're making into how we're going to strengthen data management and ensure that personal information remains secure. So Service Canada was created first in 2005. And we're a one-stop shop for all government information and services. And like I said, when we first embarked on this transformation of service delivery, everybody said we couldn't do it. And we persisted, and we did do it. We currently run a network that provides all information for all government programs and services in one place. We also go a little further for some services than others. We provide a full end-to-end service for pensions, also for employment insurance, and in many of our offices you can get a passport, and we're expanding those end-to-end services all the time. We proved the business model for one-stop shop during the 2008 global financial crisis. Service Canada was the place that the government turned to push a lot of the financial support packages to citizens to bolster the economy during the downturn. They turned to Service Canada to help be that center of service focus. And we delivered. We delivered, and I'm going to tell you why, because of the things that we had implemented in the prior years that really supported us. So Service Canada, what we do is we offer a networked platform of delivery where we have online our click, call, and visit service strategy. So online you click. We have millions of visitors who like to click for Service Canada to have information at their fingertips. We have millions of people who call us still, and we have millions of people who visit us. Through channel migration and investment in online service, we want to change that distribution so that we will migrate more and more people to online services. But before we can do that, we actually have to create the services that citizens want, and that links back to the citizen expectations. Our points of service, these are the physical points of service. Just a couple of things. Every dot on this map is, the red dots are all actual buildings, so bricks and mortar, in-person offices that are part of our network. The yellow dots are where we do mobile services, and I'm not talking about Blackberries here. I'm talking about the scheduled we call it scheduled outreach. So we visit community centers, church basements, you know, whatever is a local spot, and we provide service there maybe one day a week, once every 2 weeks, depending on the volume in the communities. And that's how we make sure that our rural citizens have access to the services as much as the urban populations. So that is our service delivery map. You can see in the north, the northern part of Canada, not very populated. We still have significant coverage for our Inuit communities who are part of the very important part of the territories of Canada. So there are about 16,000 people who deliver services in Service Canada. So our workforce is 15,000. And we are divided into 4 regions. So we have 10 provinces and 3 territories. And we have an Ontario region, a Quebec region, and then we have a region for the west and a region for the east. And that's how our service management model is organized to deliver services through those 4 regions. We mentioned access earlier. We have a service standard for access, which is 90% of Canadians, so 90% of the 34 million that Guy talked about, have access to a Service Canada point of service within 50 kilometers of where they live. So the service excellence model that we've adopted, before 2005, when Service Canada was created, we had 10 regional management structures. Every department in government had their own service delivery network. And through the transformation over the past several years, we've really transformed from an individual program and an individual department framework to a consolidated service delivery framework and a consolidated service culture. We've adopted standard approaches and standard services, and we've also got organizing governance structures that support service delivery with our partners. We've done, I want to highlight 5 things that we've done that really, for me, speak to the service culture that we've been able to work with in delivering services. The first is we created the Service Canada College to really drive service excellence and professionalize service among all of our service delivery agents. We developed a service management model that took 4,000 unique job descriptions for, can you believe it, 4,000 job descriptions for about 15,000 people, and we brought that down to 50. And we structured those work descriptions in a way that focused their tasks on service delivery to citizens and not internal management functions. The third thing we did was really we implemented a client-centered model, but also a client-centered service experience model, so that the service experience in all of our centers was described and implemented in every center across the country. That came with it common service offerings for all of the programs, and also common measurement structures that reflected the citizens first delivery models and important client service factors that Guy spoke about. We also introduced the Office for Client Satisfaction. We have mystery shopper exercises, and we do a client satisfaction survey every 2 years. On that survey, we have attained an 80% client satisfaction, but a concern I have is that we've not been able to increase it beyond 80%, and that's something that we are going to be taking a look at in the months ahead. We've also had some key partnerships that have been incredibly fruitful. We've worked very successfully with our provincial counterparts to look at a birth registration bundle that would go across the federal and provincial governments. And that means that when you have a baby in Canada, you register that birth, and it triggers your health card, your government's social insurance number, and your education savings plans, and a number of interjurisdictional processes. And through that life event, you're automatically registered for a number of activities. I'll stop there. I think I'd like to pass the baton over to my colleague, Richard, who's going to come up and talk to you. Perfect segue around the Service Ontario model. Thank you.
Shukran.
Just get the presentation up here. Well, thank you. It's an enormous pleasure to be here in Dubai this afternoon. I'll echo the comments of my colleagues. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to talk to such a large number of people interested in the whole question of service delivery. It's been a passion of mine for a long time. I've worked in the service delivery area now for over 10 years. I've been part of the Service Ontario journey for that time, so I'm delighted to come and share a few minutes of that story. Again, just to provide a little bit of context, Ontario is one of the 10 provinces in Canada. It's the largest province. And again, a federal system, so at the provincial level, we're responsible for education, healthcare, the administration of the criminal justice system. Service Ontario's mandate specifically is in the area of routine transactional services. So the areas we cover is everything that's essentially a rules-based service. So licensing, permitting, registration, information services, anything in that genre is what we cover. The challenge that we faced in Ontario, very similar to the challenge at the federal level and very similar to the challenges many of us face around the world, was over the 2 centuries that Ontario had been in existence. Services had grown up on a ministry-by-ministry basis to address particular challenges. At the service delivery level, what that translated into is completely unique, separate, and distinct service delivery organizations embedded within individual ministries. So the Ministry of Transportation had a service delivery organization dedicated only to driver and vehicle licensing. The Ministry of Health had a service delivery organization with all of the attendant parts to that, an in-person network, a contact center network, back office operations, support functions, dedicated simply to registering people for health insurance. Similar organizations around land registration, companies registration, registering birth, deaths, and marriage. The list goes on and on. Outdoor permitting for hunting and fishing licensing, for example. So the list goes on and on. All completely distinct delivery networks. 2 major challenges with that. Obviously, the most important is the service experience for citizens and businesses. Very fragmented, difficult to understand where to go to get service, often having to go to multiple different services, access problems. As with the rest of Canada, Ontario is a very large area, and in the more rural areas, often difficult to even get access to government services. And then, of course, a cost issue. Duplicating all of that service delivery infrastructure, all of that support infrastructure is extremely expensive and simply not affordable. So the Service Ontario organization has actually been around for about 10 years, and in fact, its first incarnation's even longer than that. But in 2006, after a number of years of relatively slow progress, I would say, as a result of taking a very consultative and negotiation-based approach, in 2006, the Ontario government decided it really wanted to make progress on this agenda. And Service Ontario received a very clear and strong mandate from the government to become the single window organization for the scope of services that I just described. So from that point on, it was no longer a question of did the ministry program owners wish to partner with Service Ontario. There was a clear top-down mandate that they had to partner with Service Ontario. And that, frankly, was really crucial to moving the agenda forward. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the early principles we adopted as we moved services from partner ministries, program owner ministries into Service Ontario, because I think they served us well then, and they served us well, and they continue to serve us well now. The first is we didn't try to figure out the entire integrated service delivery solution before we actually moved services from partner ministries, so for example, the Ministry of Transportation or the Ministry of Health, into Service Ontario. We basically took the services as they existed, we moved them in with a view to, essentially we felt we would have a much easier time of managing transformation and managing integration once we had direct operational control of the services. So that was a key principle. A second key principle was that the Service Ontario organization, while needing to work very much in partnership with the program ministry owner, so again, for example, the Ministry of Transportation or the Ministry of Health, we were not the service delivery agent for those ministries. So the policy direction that Ontario took was, in fact, that the service delivery accountability was moved from those ministries to Service Ontario. So our minister, the Minister of Government Services, is accountable to our legislature for service delivery. The Minister of Transportation is accountable for policy. So, for example, who is eligible to get a driver's license? The Minister of Health is accountable for who is eligible for health insurance, but our minister is accountable for how are those services actually delivered, which again, the intent of that was to provide greater flexibility and greater ability to integrate across a range of services. Third key principle was the depth, if you like, of customer service that we assumed accountability for. So the Service Ontario role is not limited purely to intake. We do manage the customer service experience from end to end. So from accessing information about a service, certainly to the intake through various channels, right the way through to fulfillment of a product, so the issuing of a license, the issuing of a certification. Another key principle was related to the one I mentioned earlier around us not being an agent for our ministry partners, is the financial model we adopted was that the budget associated with service delivery was transferred to Service Ontario. So again, we don't operate on a chargeback basis with our ministry partners. We have accountability to the government for the management of the entire service delivery budget for the organization. And again, and this is an interesting point, is Service Ontario is responsible for service delivery policy. Now that's very much a work in progress. That's a gray area. Where does service delivery policy end? Where does program policy start? And that's been a boundary, that's been a point of negotiation and remains a point of negotiation between Service Ontario and our ministry partners. And it's one that we have ongoing conversations on as we try to find innovative ways to simplify service. We frequently run into impediments of ministry-specific policies, and then we engage in a process of negotiation with our ministry partners around that. At heart, the key to our organization, just as with Service Canada or with other one-stop service delivery organizations, is the very simple concept of designing an organization around the customer. So we have an incredible luxury at Service Ontario. Unlike our ministry partners, we have a very singular focus, and that is on customer satisfaction. Our job is to ensure that we deliver services in a way that meets the expectations of citizens and businesses in Canada. And contrast that to the prior situation, where generally speaking, the priority of ministries was on policy. Service delivery always became a bit of an afterthought, simply because their priority was serving the policy imperatives of the government of the day, developing new policy. It was difficult for them. It wasn't that they didn't have the capability or the knowledge or the smarts. It was just very difficult of them to sustain focus on service delivery. We have the luxury of focusing on service delivery. We are able to take that citizen-centered approach. And we also have the luxury of being able to focus on a fairly limited number of key measures. I'll talk a little bit later about the importance and the centrality of measurement. But really, we're able to focus on a number of very key messages. Citizen satisfaction is the key one. And we are able to align the entire organization, everything we do, from the front line right back through to our support organizations around, is what we're doing having an impact on improving citizen satisfaction? And again, that ability to focus is absolutely crucial. As a service delivery organization, obviously our employees and their engagement is absolutely crucial. This is the same in the public sector, it's the same in the private sector. In Canada, we've developed a concept called the service value chain, which is really around the understanding that there is a direct and measurable connection between the engagement and satisfaction of our staff, our service delivery staff, and the experience that citizens and businesses are receiving from our organization. And in turn, that citizen experience has a very direct and measurable impact on the overall confidence and trust in government. So the starting point for us is to ensure an engaged workforce. We've done a number of things in that area, some of them similar to what my colleague describes from Service Canada. Certainly a lot of work around creating specific customer service job classifications, a great deal of simplification in the nature of work, a lot of work around reducing the layers of management in the organization so that we could improve communication flow from the top to the bottom. So we have a very shallow organization, managers, directors, assistant deputy ministers. That's it. We don't allow any more levels of management in the organization than that. A great deal of focus on recognition, ensuring that employees get recognized for the work they're doing. A lot of focus on coaching, so really developing the coaching skills of our leaders to ensure that our staff are getting very direct and immediate feedback on the job they are doing in providing excellent service. And again, measurement is key here. On a quarterly basis, we survey our staff in terms of their engagement on a number of key factors, including some of the ones I mentioned: communication, recognition, inclusion. And a key one for us is would our staff recommend Service Ontario as a place to work? So we measure that on a quarterly basis, and as we see issues, we're able to respond to those very quickly. Increasingly, Service Ontario more and more is becoming a service integrator and a service manager, as well as, or even more than to some degree, a service delivery organization. While we are an organization of about 2,000 staff, increasingly we manage delivery through partnerships. So as an example, our in-person office network across the province, around 300 locations, 2/3 of those are operated by private partners that we contract with. 1/3 of them are operated by our own staff. And the shift there is gradually towards private delivery. Another example is our land registration business. We have a long-term strategic arrangement with a company called Terranet Inc., which actually started as a public-private partnership. And their mandate was to modernize the land registration system from a paper-based to a fully electronic system, and they now continue to operate that system on our behalf. In addition, of course, our partnerships with the municipal and federal government are crucial to us in terms of how we deliver service. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Once we migrated services into Service Ontario, we really went through what I would describe as a three-step or three-phase process towards integration. The first was organizational integration, so taking these separate service delivery organizations and integrating them into a single organization structure. So still distinct services, still distinct channels, but a single organization structure. The area where we've placed most focus over the last 5 years has been in integrating our channel delivery infrastructure, in particular our in-person office networks and our contact center networks. So as I mentioned earlier, we inherited essentially 5 or 6 distinct in-person delivery networks across the province with some of the challenges that I mentioned. And over the period of 2009 to 10, we went through a very large exercise to integrate all of those into a single network, branded as Service Ontario, where citizens get access to the full range of services in any one of those offices. To give you a little bit of sense of, practically speaking, what that meant on the ground, this is an example of a relatively small community, Kenora, in the northwest of Ontario, population of 15,000. We were operating 4 individual service centers in that community. Through the project we implemented to integrate all of that, we now have 1. Significantly improved service experience, obviously, for citizens, and obviously significantly reduced cost for us. As a result of all of this, we were able to, at the same time, significantly improve access and service. So we now have 95% of our population within 10 kilometers within 5 kilometers of a service point. For some of our service, we were able to radically extend access. So for example, for health insurance registration, we were able to increase access from 27 offices to 200 offices. And yet at the same time, through integration, we were actually able to close over 60 of our offices across the province with obvious savings. On the contact center front, a very similar story. We've actually just completed a significant integration exercise. Again, we inherited 6 distinct contact center lines of business, and we've just completed an exercise to move towards a single enterprise-level contact center platform. We still operate in different sites across the province, but we're now operating on one platform, one number that can be called, and with all of our Tier 1 agents able to support across multiple lines of business. So again, similar improvements in the service experience, similar opportunities for cost reduction as we can optimize calls across multiple call centers. Like all of us, channel migration, increased use of the electronic channel is absolutely crucial to our strategy for 2 reasons, in fact. One is obviously the lower cost of the channel, and the second is the opportunities it presents around service integration. From our perspective, it's far easier for us to integrate services across ministries, and with partners at the federal and municipal level, far easier to do that through the e-channel than it is in the in-person channel or over the contact center. This is an area where I'd say we've actually made mixed progress. Some of our lines of business are now pretty much fully electronic. Our land registration business I mentioned earlier, where we have a public-private partnership. Our birth registration service, my colleague mentioned earlier our collaboration on that. Through providing that integrated service electronically, we've been able to present citizens with such a compelling service experience that we now have about 95% of citizens choosing to use the online service. On the other hand, we have some services where we haven't been able to create such a compelling differential between the existing in-person channel and electronic services, where we haven't yet made the kind of progress we'd like to see. So for example, renewing your vehicle license, we continue to see far more customers than we'd like to see coming into our offices to do that transaction. And we really need to make more progress in again, differentiating either through service quality or through cost and pricing, the online versus the in-person experience. I'm going to skip this because we've talked about it. I wanted to talk a little bit about measurement. Again, this has been absolutely crucial to our success, is having a very clear sense of targets, what we're aiming to achieve, measuring that relentlessly. Again, we measure everything on a quarterly basis. We use very much the information that the Institute delivers on an annual or a biannual basis. We take a subset of those measures and we measure those on a quarterly basis. The key one for us, again, of course, is customer satisfaction. And you can see here what we actually measure is the percent of customers that are very satisfied, so what we call top box. And over the last 5 years, we've moved from low 60s to the low 80s in terms of citizens who are very satisfied with our service, primarily, again, through that integrated experience we're able to offer. In terms of the total percent satisfied, we're now running at about 92%. So that's very satisfied and satisfied. Another key area of measurement for us is brand awareness. If we're going to make progress with the concept of a one-stop shop, citizens need to know what that shop is. Where do they actually go? So another key objective for us has been, do people know who Service Ontario is and what they can get from Service Ontario? And again, you can see that over just the last 3 years, we've made very substantial progress through our marketing and branding efforts in that regard. Finally, one of the key drivers that sits beneath satisfaction is timeliness, is how fast are we providing the service, is it meeting expectations? So that's been a key focus for us. And one of our flagship products to promote that concept and awareness of that particular measure is what we call our money-back service guarantees. So for a number of services, particularly ones where we'd experienced some service challenges in the past, we implemented a series of guarantees where what we said to our customers was, if we didn't meet the service standard, we would give them their money back. We would return the fee that they'd paid to government for doing that. Now, we only implemented those when we were obviously very confident that we could actually deliver on the service standard in a sustainable way. But these have been a very effective way of generating focus within the organization and really demonstrating in a very public way our commitment and focus to sustaining service standards. And I'm going to leave it at that and look forward to questions. Thank you.
في العادة كمدير الجلسة يمكن الواحد يحضر بعض الأسئلة، لكن أنا صراحة ما ببدأ فيها، يمكن بوجه سؤالي مباشرة لجوردن. 92% كاستمر ساتسفاكشن. كيف تمكنتم من تحقيق هذا الرضا؟
I can speak to that. Sure. Thank you. Well, it's really the various elements that we spoke to. I think it's the starting point again is that relentless focus on why do we exist? We exist to serve the customer. So whenever we're having discussions at the executive table around decisions that need to be made, frequently we challenge each other around, well, wait a second, that's not a very customer-centered perspective you're taking. So there's a culture of being focused on the customer. That's at the heart of it. Again, the second piece is the employee engagement, the employee commitment of our frontline staff to service excellence is absolutely crucial. Fundamentally, though, I think simply the sheer act of integration presents such a qualitative change in the service experience of citizens. Being able to go to one office instead of having to go to 3 offices. So as an example, prior to Service Ontario, on your birthday, you would have to go to one office to renew your health insurance card, another office to renew your driver's license. Being able to have citizens come to one office where we manage the wait time so that they weren't long, a radically different service experience. So essentially, it's the elements that I spoke about.
حسب الأرقام اللي موجودة عندنا يمكن يوجد 600 مركز في خدمات أونتاريو وخدمات كندا. كيف تضمنون أن يتم تطبيق نفس المعايير، معايير الخدمة نفسها؟ كيف يتم المحافظة عليها وضمان عدم اختلافها من مركز لمركز؟ مع الأخذ بعين الاعتبار أن المراكز متوزعة في منطقة جدا ضخمة يعني.
Okay, thanks very much. You're really asking about how we achieve that consistency of service across a diverse network. One of the things that I think helps us is that we have taken the time to develop concrete service offerings for each of the major services that we deliver. We train our employees on those service offerings. There are very clear standards, very clear pathways for the services that are offered to the citizen.
So, for example, if a person comes in and says, you know, I lost my job, I don't have a job anymore, I don't know what to do, we don't expect that citizen to know that there's a program called employment insurance and that there's a qualifying period. We take care of that complexity. We say this citizen has lost their job. We tell them that there's a support available, that they need to apply. We help them with that process. And we also go the extra mile to say, and there's also a service where you can actually sign up for jobs in your area. And they might not know anything about how government's organized, and we bring that together. And we train our people not only on the technical part of that, but we also train them on the soft skills associated with making sure that the client is well supported and is encouraged and stays positive through that experience. So sometimes we even have clients who say, I didn't get the benefits that I wanted, but I'm happy with the service. And so to make that consistent in all of our offices, it's really centered around the training and the development of that service offering and understanding the client need before the client presents themselves.
يمكن الملاحظ في العروض وفي الأجوبة كلمة ثقافة الخدمة تكررت أكثر عن مرة. ICCS يمكن جزء رئيسي من عملها تدريب الموظفين أو تدريب الموظفين تقديم الخدمة على تقديم الخدمة وتعزيز ثقافة تقديم الخدمة نفسها. ممكن بس إذا تعطينا فكرة عن كيفية تحقيق هذا وما هي يمكن الطرق المتبعة لتدريب الموظفين؟
Well, what we do is we integrate all of the elements together. So first of all, we use the research that collectively all the governments do when they listen and they ask Canadians about what they want from their governments in terms of citizens. That becomes a fundamental part of the training so that all the staff, from the executive to the senior managers to the front line, have a very clear understanding of what the common expectations are. We then build a series of courses and courseware around the core competencies needed to be able to deliver on those expectations. And then what we do is we bring the people together to share their passion and their experience. And that's what gives them energy, and they learn so much from each other. So they may learn from a colleague who works in the same department but in a different part of the country, or they may learn from a colleague from another order of government. And they will pick up an idea, an innovation that comes from the municipal level or the largest organization or the smallest organization. The beauty about this is that innovation can come from anywhere. It comes from everywhere. And you know, tremendous amount of innovations here in the United Arab Emirates in terms of the way you do things. There are ideas that can be taken, and people, you just get to give them the right set of permissions and encouragement, and people with the right passions will start to use that. And then it gets infectious, right? That's the interesting thing. Success breeds success, and then all of a sudden you get a positive reinforcement, and it grows slowly. And to be honest, it's been amazing to see how fast. We oftentimes are contacted by somebody who said, I went to one of your sessions and I heard about the idea, and then we did it, and here's the success. And we had nothing more to do than just to introduce them to the ideas, and off they go. And sometimes those successes are very small. Sometimes they're massive, impacting hundreds of thousands of Canadians. So it's about creating that right kind of environment. But what you have to do is give them the right information with the right encouragement and put them together and do it in a systematic way. So that's what we try and do.
ريتشارد، يمكن كان لي شرف زيارة سيرفيس كندا. بعد هذا السؤال ممكن أوجهه لفيتشر في 2008، وكان من ضمن الأسئلة أذكر سألت الشخص المعني عن التحديات اللي واجهتها سيرفيس كندا كمؤسسة عند البداية، فكان جوابه هو كان نفس الحديث اللي احنا يمكن تكلمنا فيه مع عادل قبل، أن أكبر تحدي كان هو إقناع الجهات أو المؤسسات التنازل عن خدمات إذا ما نقول اللي هي تقدمها في مراكزها لكي يتم تقديمها في خدمات كندا. الصلاحيات اللي كانت موجودة أو المانديت اللي موجود في خدمات كندا ما كان في قانون ملزم للمؤسسات أن تقدمه. فهل هذا كان تحدي بالنسبة لكم وكيف تمت معالجته؟ خاصة إذا تكلمنا إذا كان في توجه من حكومة دولة الإمارات لتبني مشروع مشابه لهذا. السؤال يمكن لريتشارد وبيتشر كذلك ممكن يجاوب عليه.
Okay, I'll give it a start. That would be Service Ontario, not Service Canada. Yeah, absolutely that was a key challenge in the Service Ontario story, and again in the early part of our evolution, there was very slow going, and while now we certainly do have ministry partners who come to us, and in fact we have the fortunate, I guess, challenge right now. We have too many ministry partners wanting to take on service that we can actually handle from a capacity and management point of view. But initially, it was much more of a challenge. There was considerable reluctance on the part of some of the key ministries to transfer responsibility for service delivery. And to some degree, understandably, we were to some degree an untried and unproven organization. It's a lot easier now that we've been able to demonstrate the effectiveness of the model. So certainly to really create that initial critical mass that enabled us to demonstrate the value proposition, that kind of a top-down mandate was absolutely crucial. Having said that, it was also really important for us as Service Ontario to take a practical and collaborative approach with our ministry partners. So while the value proposition has been self-evident, and the ministry partners are now very comfortable with the fact that they don't have to worry about service delivery, they can focus on their core role, program policy, of stewardship, and they can leave service delivery to us. So it's taken a little time, but again, the proof has been in the experience, and people have been persuaded.
Yes, just a couple of remarks to add to what Richard's saying. We've had partners, mostly through collaboration, and it's been mixed. We've had some partners who can never see their way through to handing over services. They don't like the feeling of handing over that control. We've had other partners who can't wait to deal with us. And so I think the secret for us over time has been, because with some partners we've proven ourselves, it's made it a lot easier for the resisting partners, and eventually it becomes a sea change, and it's much more acceptable to look at having service delivery done through a service organization. Having said that, I think though that there is a lot of benefits to the model that Richard spoke about, which is that top-down, directed, and mandated approach. I think that you get progress a lot faster. And so, that is, I think, the message I would leave, is that both models work, and they both get you to the end game. But I think a mandated approach gets you there faster.
شكرا. يمكن ارجع مره ثانيه على موضوع متابعه وتطوير الخدمات ومتابعه الاداء. في خدمات كندا كيف يتم قياس الخدمات؟ واذا اخذناها على مستويين، على المستوى الاستراتيجي اللي هي تعنى به يمكن قيادات الحكومه، او على مستوى الخدمات او المستوى التشغيلي اللي هو الخدمات اللي تقاس بشكل يومي على مستوى المركز نفسه. فما هي الآلية المتبعة في ذلك؟
We used basically a balanced scorecard approach to developing our performance strategies. So we have indicators in various components. We focus and then of those indicators, there's roughly about 85 of operational and strategic indicators. And there are about 10 of those that we consider to be key. And those are the ones that measure access, timeliness, client satisfaction, outcome, impression of outcome, and we track those. We have operational measures that give you all kinds of granular data. That's very important from an operational management focus to move your team from one task to another on a daily or weekly basis. But at the strategic level, there are about 10 indicators that we track to say, are we on target with the client service drivers? And so what our client service drivers are telling us right now is that we need to make important investments in electronic delivery. That's the future. So to get that sea change of a boost of client satisfaction, we need, and I think all governments are hearing this, to make investments in the electronic direction, to have that supported with smooth and intuitive services that will allow service to be personalized. And I think for the strides that we want to make in terms of our next generation of client service boost, it'll be with electronic service strategies.
يمكن ما نفتح المجال للأسئلة، معناه يزعلون علينا في صندوق الزكاة، قال لي ما تعطي وقت وايد. شو نسوي؟ يمكن مواضيع وايد من الشعب ونحاول ان نستفاد منهم، فبنبدا بس الاخوه الشخص اللي بيسال اللي يتعرف باسمه والمؤسسه اللي يتبع له ويحاول يختصر في السؤال على اساس نقدر نعطي فرصه. تفضل.
محمد سليمان لبلوشي من صندوق الزكاة. على السريع، في كندا في 3 تحديات واجهتكم. التحدي الأول أنكم حكومة فيدرالية، فبالتالي في حكومة اتحادية، حكومة مقاطعات، حكومات محلية. السؤال: كيف نسقتم بين كل الجهات هذه بحيث أن تقدم خدمة عن طريق مركز واحد؟ السؤال الأول. السؤال الثاني، التحدي الآخر.
شو رأيك نختصره في سؤال واحد؟ لأن أنا شفت وايد شباب.
خلاص.
زين بخلي يجاوبون على السؤال وبرجع لك ناصر.
زين.
We have I think some success in integrating the information aspects of service delivery. So a citizen would walk into a Service Canada Centre, and I think for the most part a Service Ontario Centre, and we would be able to help that citizen find the right path for their service. We may not be able to complete all the service transactions end to end, because I would be dealing with federal services, and for the most part my colleagues in the provinces would be dealing with service fulfillment in provincial services. So one of the things that I think we need to do more of is partnering with across the jurisdictions in order to have those a lot more centralized. But for the most part, we've been working within the federal services and within the provincial services to make that as smooth as possible for the citizen. Richard?
Yeah, it's getting all 3 levels of government to collaborate and implement together is a challenge. As I think Guy pointed out at the beginning, people are jealous of their jurisdiction, so it takes time. As I think I mentioned, I think it's a lot easier to do on the electronic channels, working through all of the issues associated with integrating our in-person offices, all of the staffing issues and just the physical facility issues, the technology issues. Very, very challenging. We do have it. We actually do have some co-located centres with Service Canada and with municipal governments. But the areas where we, I think, have made the biggest steps forward are on the online channel, the integrated birth registration we spoke about. A lot of success in integrated services for business online between the federal, provincial and municipal governments. So I think that will be the future, is really using the electronic channel to drive further integration between levels of government.
شكرا لك. يمكن نشوف ناصر وبرجع لك يا راشد. إن شاء الله.
ناصر الكعبي، مدير خدمة المتعاملين بوزارة الداخلية. نشكر السادة على العرض الشيق. أنا حقيقة سؤالي في موضوع قياس رضا المتعاملين أو الجمهور من سيرفيس كندا. هل يتم ذكروا الأخوان المحاضرين الاعتماد على السيرفي وعلى المستري شوبر أو المتسوق السري؟ هل يتم قياس كل الخدمات إذا كان الجواب نعم، هل تم قياسها على فترات معينة؟ وإذا كان الجواب لا، كيف يتم اختيار الخدمات التي تقاس؟ شكرا.
I think maybe game or Richard picture.
I think it's
open.
Thank you very much for your question. The customer satisfaction survey that Service Canada does, there's three types of surveys that we do. The first one is every 2 years we hire a private sector company to do a methodologically sound survey of clients who've been clients of Service Canada, and we ask them to rate the service experience that they had on a number of criteria. So courtesy, access, outcome, those kinds of criteria. And that is the survey that we use, and we've currently achieved an 80% satisfaction rate. They're either very satisfied or satisfied, 80%. The second type we use is a mystery shopper survey. And a mystery shopper survey is a company that we hire that goes in and pretends they're a customer and tries to get service, and we evaluate whether the office is compliant with how they deliver that service in the common service offerings that we've trained our employees to do. So we evaluate the offices using mystery shopper. The third area is we do administrative surveys from time to time in order to get administrative data on targeted service questions that we have. For example, we may notice in an office that the take-up of electronic services is not where we think it should be. We would do a targeted survey for 2 or 3 weeks to find out what's going on in that office. Are the employees not promoting things properly? Is there literacy issues with the clients? So we would do a targeted, and we would use that data to adjust our training and to adjust the practices in the office. So it's really those 3 levels that we use.
عندنا هني بناخذ راشد وبعدين بناخذ.
شكرا على العرض. راشد الجميري من مجلس أبو ظبي للتطوير الاقتصادي. سؤالي هو للمتحدثين كالآتي: هل لديكم خدمات للقطاع الخاص في كما تقدمونه للمواطنين، مثلا رجال الأعمال، مستثمرين، من يفكر بأن يعني يأتي إلى كندا لكي يستثمر، ومن هذه الأشياء؟
Sure, I'll take a start at that one. Yeah, Service Ontario provides both services to citizens and services to business. We're not so much in the business of investment attraction or investment retention. Our services would be more around the administrative aspects of business registration and licensing. So we play that role, and we also play a role on behalf of government more broadly. In terms of really driving the integration of services to business across the provincial government. So we launched last year a website called OneSource, which provides access to all provincial and many municipal services. We've been working very closely with the federal government around the adoption of a single business identifier across multiple different programs. What that allows, of course, is for when a business comes into our OneSource site and logs in, they can actually see the status of their accounts with a whole range of different government programs. So that continues to be a key focus for us. We're now taking that concept and engaging with municipal governments to have them to start adopting that single business identifier as well, so that again, one source, businesses can come in, they can get their provincial licensing, and hopefully they will in the future be able to get their municipal licensing and permitting as well.
بناخذ سؤالين على السريع، واسمحوا لي الاخوه يمكن اطلب من الضيوف ان الجواب يكون في 30 ثانيه لان تقريبا انتهينا، ولكن الاخوه اللي يبغون يسالون بعدين اكثر الضيوف موجودين ممكن.
خالد احمد, Economic Zones World. First, wow, I mean it's like a hose basically coming through, so there is a lot of information to grasp and understand. I want to get to the granular issues, processes. How will 300 services processes be understood by an employee? And how would somebody be able to answer a question on a passport and a revenues or a tax issue at the same time? And how would you possibly change a process if you have one person managing 300 of them?
We'll have a 30-second.
Okay. One of the lessons learned, I would say, for Service Canada is that you can't focus strictly on the front-end processes without also having a focus on the back-office processes. So they go hand in hand. You need to make improvements in both areas. The important thing about delivering 300 services, or however many it is, the important thing is that you're focusing on the service part. You're not training your employees on technical knowledge. Technical knowledge they can get by passing the person to a technical expert. For the most part, they can, from a service standpoint, they can use the internet. We have tools, and we train them on how to understand and access information, as opposed to training them on the technical aspect of the legislative or regulatory framework.
ناخذ السؤال الأخير بس هناكي. أوكي. ما بردكم خذوا السؤالين بس الله يخليكم استعيلوا فيها.
أوكي. ياسر نسور وزارة الثقافة. في بعض الجهات الحكومية بتقدم خدمات عامة ممكن إنها ما بتيجي نتيجة خطوات إجرائية من المتعامل بشكل مباشر، وعادة هاي الخدمات بتستهدف تحقيق الرفاهية للمجتمع بشكل عام، وبالعادة بتكون توقعات المتعاملين عالية. كيف ممكن كجهات حكومية أن نضمن التوازن ما بين توقعات المتعاملين في هيك نوع من الخدمات في ظل أحيانا طبيعة الموارد المتاحة أو الميزانية أو القدرة على التطبيق في المدى القصير؟
Well, I think the short answer is yes. We've seen that done successfully in different areas, but it takes a lot of thought and judgment. And what I would say is we do have our booth over set up. So in the interest of time, if you'd love to come and have a more of a longer chat, discuss that very deep and complicated question, we'd love to do that in a few minutes here.
ناخذ سؤال على السريع بس.
السلام عليكم. حيث أن رضا المتعاملين يعتبر من أهم مؤشرات لقياس جودة الخدمات المقدمة، وحيث أنكم وصلتوا إلى نسبة 80%، ما هي برامجكم وخطط عملكم لزيادة رضا المتعاملين إلى 95%، وفي كم سنة يمكن أن تصلوا إلى هذه النسبة؟ وشكرا.
Actually, I think the 95 might be Richard's idea. Thank you, Richard.
92.
But clearly, Service Canada, we want to be much higher than 80%. We're actually looking at what number is the right number. Is it 90%, 92? But it's definitely more than 80. And I think there are some key things we need to do to push us in that direction. One of the things that you may find is that when you're already doing a lot of really good things, it's hard to improve. So we need to leapfrog ahead. We need to be into mobile technology. We need to take the client satisfaction survey that we have and translate that into the tangible next business efforts of Service Canada. So I think that those are electronic, they are mobile, embracing technology, giving the citizens the services that they want. It's also making sure that we continue with our partnerships with our, the provinces, and go for partnerships more on a multilateral basis rather than a bilateral partner by partner, so that we can make faster progress. Citizens are clearly telling us, we love the concept. 96% of Canadians love one-stop service, but they want it to be fully one-stop service, and they want it to be electronic, and that's where we need to go.
شكرا بشار. في النهاية أود أن أشكر ضيوفي الكرام على المعلومات القيمة اللي شاركونا فيها. بالتأكيد بيكونوا موجودين بعد الجلسة او على الاستاند اللي موجود للجواب الرد على اي استفسار عندكم اليوم وبكره ان شاء الله بيكونوا موجودين. اشكركم على حضوركم ورجاء شاركونا بس شكر الضيوف